Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And we are here for episode 42, and we have just got out of the cinema from seeing
the new Scream.
It was a long pause.
It was. I was thinking you were going to say
expected you to pop.
No.
I thought you were going to jump in there. Okay,
No.
so
Already we're
Scream,
off.
and
Yeah.
just to be clear, Scream 2022, the brand new reboot, sequel, or requel, as they will say it.
So this is our first episode of 2022 as well. After we had a blunder last week where we did actually have a pretty in-depth, nearly 2-hour conversation.
We did almost Scream. 2 hours of the original Scream.
Yes, only to find out that I'd accidentally hit the button to turn the microphone off.
Well, it's one of those things. Once you're doing it, it was really hard to not notice that it had gone wrong.
Yeah.
And we also, this seems to be a curse now, because the first episode we did of 2021 in January was our meant to be our January dumping ground episode, which we did The Stepfather and From Dusk Till Dawn, and because of a stupid mistake on my side, so it's both, we've both done this now at different years, but we've both done one of this. On my side, we could never release that episode either, because hopefully 2023 is a better year.
Hopefully.
We're only in January and we're already ready to restart.
Yeah, we already fucked up. Next year's going to be my year for sure.
Next year, you will get an episode at the beginning of January, but not this time.
Well, as always, we're going to do the first 15 minutes of this spoiler-free, and then we're going to dive into spoiler territory, but we will give you a countdown.
Make it very clear.
Yeah. So we're both massive fans of the Scream franchise as a whole, aren't we? So going into this film, now we said this on the previous episode, which obviously didn't air, but we were kind of weren't as excited as we thought we would be for this film. There was a bit of a subdued excitement, maybe. Obviously, it's opening night, so we went to see it. So, we were excited, but I think it didn't quite have the excitement of when we went to see Scream 4, or potentially more recently, Halloween Kills. So it was it was one, we were with, we saw it with my girlfriend Anne, and she said, are you excited to see it? And we were both kind of like, yeah, not overly.
I think it links to what we did a prediction episode on this. Literally, it was our second ever episode. A year and a half ago or more was when that was recorded. And in that episode itself, we talked about. I really listened to it the other day just to kind of revamp in my mind. And we talked about like the things to avoid and the things to do better and those kind of things. And one of the ones we went on to, and one of the bits we talked about in depth then, and we repeated that in what none of you heard last week, which was we didn't know where it could go. As in, like, Scream 4 had already done the whole modern age social commentary, like internet, you need to be a celebrity kind of. It hit that ground, which felt like back then it was actually not as relevant as it is today. Scream 4 is more relevant today than it probably was back then. They were ahead of their time, and we kind of like, we've kind of hit that. And when they'd covered reboots, they talked about reboots and remakes, and maybe not as much reboots, but maybe more remakes, but still, they'd kind of covered that ground. So we're like, what is the new kind of way that they're going to approach this kind of thing? So I think that's what dampened me to the idea. And then on top of that, there are certain things like in the trailer, certain hints of things. No spoilers. Just saying there are certain hints of things that some people might have picked up on. I'm not saying whether they do or don't happen, but that dampened me a little bit as well, because I was worried that if this is rubbish and they do certain twists, that this is going to be it's going to feel even worse because they did the twist. It's like you could have just left it where it was.
Yeah.
And not kind of done this kind of thing. So, there's a lot of... I just think there was a lot of mixed emotions. I feel like I didn't know. I feel like part of me didn't know whether, although I wanted a new Scream, I don't know if I needed a new Scream.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same about that.
Yeah,
because I think, sorry to cut in.
No, go.
One of the things that we've said ourselves, and I think is kind of consistent amongst horror fans, is Scream tends to be one of the most, if not the most, consistent franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, before now we were 4 films deep, and even Scream 3, which I would say is the weakest film, still has good commentary about how Hollywood's run, and I would still find Scream 3 is still an enjoyable and
it's still a fun ride.
and a fun ride.
Yeah.
So it's not. It
has some bad twists. It has not a great twist kind of thing. One of those that we kind of didn't like, the whole rewriting history kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the film works well. It has a few good deaths, and it is generally fun to have the characters. And this is one thing that always made Scream work. The 3 original characters interacting is kind of what made it good in a way.
Yeah.
That Scream was more than just the kills. I think it was character.
It's the character, and it's the whodunit aspect.
Yeah, the whodunit is obviously very that's kind of what was brilliant about Scream, is that it took the classic like Agatha Christie whodunit and brought it into the modern day.
Mixed it with a slasher film kind of.
The slasher film, but we've got that red herrings that is very much built into like the classic literature kind of thing, and they brought that in with the classic tropes of Halloween and Friday the 13th. It's why people kind of are drawn to it. It's why people still wanted to look at murder mysteries like that were written in the 1800s and still look at them now and go, that's really good, and they've adapted it like a million times because people love a murder mystery.
Well, there's a new Death on the Nile coming out.
Yeah, exactly. And how many times have they done Death on the Nile? There's a million different versions of that film already made and TV, and it's been done to death, and yet people still want to see it, a new version, a new adaptation of it.
And I think just briefly, this was for me. I don't want to. I came out of this film feeling kind of very mixed, and the more I thought about it, the less I'm inclined to kind of enjoy it. There was quite a cool moment actually where, obviously, for some reason, all 3 of us drove to the cinema as opposed to you picking me up and us meeting out of there, whatever. But I was parked.
We were not eco.
We were not eco-friendly at all. I was parked a floor above Anna. So obviously we said bye to you. And I said to Anna, well, that's probably we're not going to see Seb again. I was hoping you would say, I'll be back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. And then when we got up, when we were walking up, I kind of made some jokes about that she was going to be left alone and that. And then when we paid for the tickets on the same floor, and I went upstairs, there were loads of people on the first floor. And then once I walked through the doors to the stairs to go up the floor, it was silent. There was nobody there. And then I got up to the parking floor I was on, and it was completely empty apart from me. And I got a bit like, oh no.
Scream 4 flashback.
I got a Scream 4 flashback to the car park, and I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to die now. To
be fair, I was walking alone down a road which is has actually slightly rough kind of part of an area. And I was walking alone down the road, and I was still like, I was like texting at the same time and just being like, this could totally be be a setup for a Scream death right now. Like I am alone. I'm walking alone. I'm texting in the morning. Like, okay.
But to get into one of my main gripes about the film is that we're introduced to a wide array of new characters quite early on to the film, and then we don't. We have the two new Meeks, twins, siblings, whatever they are. We have Liv. We have Wes. We have Amber, and then we have some. I think there's someone else. And we're introduced to them, and then we we have quite a cool
It feels
bit.
very. That part is
That
very
part
felt very original Scream.
It
Very
did.
like sat around. They're not all sat around like a water feature like in the
No,
original,
but
they're sat around
school benches,
and that was a scene in the original that kind of gave us a good okay, we know kind of what each of you are a little bit now,
Yeah.
kind of how you're related to each other, what
But
keep
then
going before
we introduced the characters, and then we get another scene with them kind of later on. But then
in the bar, kind of
in the bar, and shortly after, where Meeks
at the house when we get
the
rule,
house
we get another
rules.
we get several different versions of a rule. We get Dewey's rules, we get
rules,
the Meeks, the
Meeks,
the Meeks, the as in the Meeks, the
Meeks family
rules, and then
and my problem is after that we don't see all of the kind of new generation of characters again until the end. So by then I don't really care about any of them.
If it's the idea of like on the poster, if it's the idea of it's always someone you know, then the slight problem with this is trying to blend the original and the new reboot together, the original cast and the reboot cast, is that you don't get to know. It's almost a disservice to both.
Yeah.
Because you don't get enough of the original and you don't get enough of the reboot cast.
No.
Except for Melissa Vergara's is it Sam?
Sam, yeah. Sam is very much.
Sam is very much like she was very much like
I would say
cheeky, like
I would say Sam.
Follow her. I'd almost say we follow her more. We follow Sam more than we followed Sydney in the original film.
Yeah.
Like to be honest, like because even in the original, you had more scenes where it jumped off to like Randy in the video store or Dewey. And you got more of a jump around. Whereas I'd say a lot of it follows Sam. Almost. Like it follows Sam. Boyfriend tags along,
and I think because of that, it kind of, for me, it lost a bit of that whodunit, a bit of that interest in, because the great thing about the great thing about the other Scream films is something would happen and then a character would appear and you'd be like, oh shit, could it be them?
It could be them to throw you off. The
red
herrings, not as clear here.
No, and
to have a little one. There's one early on with Liv.
Yes.
So we get a few little signs, but there's one early on with Liv, where she's left alone when all those friends were sat around together. She's left alone, and we have this kind of Carl Gallner, who is wasted in this film. He is wasted completely in this film. I was very disappointed with his considering that he's a fair presence in a few horror kind of franchises, and things like that. I know that there's actually a lot of fans. I've seen a lot of things on Twitter stuff like, "Oh, Carl Galler's in this." So anyone who was that kind of fangirling for that actor, you're going to be sorely disappointed, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But he's there as kind of this grungy, dirtbag kind of character who's after Liv, and Liv's left alone, and you get this kind of because the scene kind of lingers. It's kind of like are we getting this play up because she's actually cheating on her boyfriend and she is going off with this guy? Or is this meant to be that she's left alone because she's left alone because we're trying to say that she's a red herring, that she's by herself now so she could be the killer? Which is play up for that thing. But it's just one of those, you get one of those scenes that it didn't make me think, oh, she's the killer. It just made me think, is she cheating on her boyfriend?
Is that by Kyle?
You know what I mean? Are we about to get another scene where we see her go off with the dirtbag guy?
Dirtbag.
Yeah, just go for dirtbag.
When you said that, it made me think of the episode of It's Always Sunny when they're making Old Lady House, and then he's like, Frank Reynolds is like, what you want to do is you want to get some dirtbag who comes in off the street and just plows Bonnie. It just made me think of that, But no, I'm with you.
It was some of those little scenes that were just like, oh, okay, I don't know. But then this is the problem. Say a character like Liv, apart from the Meeks, which is not
Millie?
Chad Meeks Martin, who's Mesa Gooding, who is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son.
Nice.
Now
you say that, I can see.
Yeah,
I can see.
You can see it, can't you?
Yeah.
Mindy. It's Mindy. Jasmine Savoy Brown plays Mindy Meeks Martin, who is much more the Randy archetype in this film, and she's related to Randy. I mean, it's not if you knew a lot about you might get interested in the same way if Randy's sister's been talking about her brother that died all those years. You might get into that kind of, I kind of want to be like my uncle. I like that kind of, but her character like kind of refers to Liv, like that Liv character is like the boring one.
Yeah.
That's basically all we get of Liv. We get a few little signs that she was with a dirtbag, and we get Liv, and we get like little bits like that. We get a little creepier scene later on in the film, but and that's just one character where it's like, but the rest of them we do go a long period of this film without getting to know those characters,
and even then we don't get to find out a whole lot about them.
And even when we get to like a party kind of scene, we don't actually really get much of them actually interacting as friends like you did in the original Scream. In the original Scream, you still got to see more of the dynamics of the characters as they were at the party, discussing with each other. You had Randy and you had lots of different characters around them. You had like Stu interacting with people you had in the original film. And again, this one, it's like a quick like conversation, but then you don't see the main characters actually really interact, the main friends groups interacting with each other. So therefore, you don't get the kind of, okay, so what relation are you really to, like, how friendly, how do you feel? And tell me something about you.
And the actors and the who done it and you're a suspect, who is a suspect, was kind of felt until the very end, and I'm talking the very end scene where we already know who one of the killers is. Until then, it felt a lot like you might be the suspect, or you might be the suspect, was that kind of meta humor, as opposed to in the other films where it was like, actually, he could be a suspect. You know?
I mean, it's like a mix, because some of that is actually it is used to quite good. It's quite humorous. Some of it, some of the scenes, such as with Chad. Like Chad, when he kind of plays up the kind of, but you could be the killer. Some of it actually works quite well and quite funny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a little bit of you going like, so are you using the meta humor to replace the fact that you're not actually skillfully building ones of, like, it could be you. You're not building good red herrings. So instead, you're having the characters say you could be it repeatedly, so that we all keep thinking it.
They could be it.
The characters are aware of it, so we don't need to lay the red herrings because all the characters are aware that everyone could be it. So therefore, we don't need to try as hard. Almost. It feels a bit like a little bit at times. I feel like as we're still in the non-spoiler, we need to. Let's just get to the kind of, if we just pick out the kind of, so let's talk originals. Let's talk our Dewey, Gale, and Sydney without going into any spoilers. They are, although Sydney is front and center on the poster, she's not in it that much.
None of them really are.
No, not three of them. They're kind of this is kind of the classic Star Wars or any of the the recent ones.
Well, the
Ghostbusters. Any of the recent ones, Ghostbusters, as we talked about that recently, is a little bit different because they made the new characters clear and perfectly rounded that we didn't mind too much whether the old ones actually popped up by the end. I don't think. Whereas this one is very much like, let's spread a few scenes of the originals between the films so it never feels like you're without them, and yet it also feels like really you only get that connect. So there are certain characters we get interactions between characters, but weirdly all of their interactions feel like a setup for a twist.
Yeah.
If you think back to like the scenes with we get with, like, say, Dewey and Gale, or Dewey and Sydney and people like that, they all feel like kind of a setup for a twist. If you hear the words they said to each other, and so it's not that there's a problem with that. It works kind of with what they're doing in the film, I think.
I don't know.
But it doesn't fully justify them being there. No. It almost feels like I would have just preferred a reboot and just concentrated on the new characters.
Yeah, strange. I kind of agree. It doesn't.
Or again, in our prediction episode, one thing that I remember saying is, I don't really understand why Sydney Prescott needs to be brought back. She doesn't have any link to Woodsboro anymore. She doesn't need to be in the film.
Exactly.
And I feel like I still agree with what I thought back then.
Yeah.
She didn't need to be in it. Neither did Gale. Dewey, maybe. Dewey's very linked to Woodsboro. Yeah. So him being in that town's fine. Gale, you could have come up with an excuse because they were married before. Sydney didn't need.
No.
And it feels a bit like we just need to put her in this film.
Because she's one of the originals.
And people... And they do make jokes about this in the film, which do kind of work, that they are kind of taking the piss out of the fact that they've called it Scream when everyone knows it's Scream 5.
Yeah.
They use Stab to use that. And they do kind of talk about, the way that you have to have them. The fan base will hate it if you don't have them kind of thing.
Yeah. The kind of... Is sorry, carry on. I'll say after, carry on, man.
No, I was just going to say that kind of that toxic fan base thing is a bigger part of this kind of new Scream.
And that for me is kind of strange, because now this is one of the things where a lot in the previous Screams, there's always been some kind, the motivations have always had a meta-ness to them, and Scream's known for its kind of meta take on horror and its meta storytelling. But when we get the scene where Mindy Meeks is talking about the kind of the rule of requels, that you're not doing a straight reboot, but you can't do a direct sequel, so you're doing a mixture of the two, and you're bringing new characters in with the legacy characters, and it's all got a link to the original. I get it, and it makes sense, and it's kind of it's true for the films that they mention, because they talk about Halloween, and they talk about the new Ghostbusters, the new Star Wars, and that's true. However, it seems as if this film kind of says, well, this is what we're doing, and then kind of is a bit lazy in the rest of its storytelling. It for me, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I think it's
it is a little bit of that. That is the only thing. It is a little bit of the meta is almost used as if the meta justifies them not having to try as hard.
Yeah,
and I feel like when you weigh it down with this film, and again, I don't know. On rewatch, I might feel a little bit less, because although we said about Scream 4 earlier, I feel like I do remember leaving Scream 4 not being ecstatic about the film, being a bit like, I'm not that sure. Like, I loved the ending, but I was a bit like unsure. And I knew that definitely grew on me, kind of thing. So this definitely might grow on me, but I do feel like I can spot signs of a bit more lazy storytelling than I did in previous installments.
Yeah.
I feel like the meta has been used in a certain way to kind of justify. I mean, technically, it is all built around that. To say that, like, I don't think to say that Stab, this film, that kind of is actually a major part of this one now. The same way that Scream to us is the major part of it. I mean? But I mean, overall, though, I would like to. We need to kind of move. We're going to move on to spoilers, but just to say, as a kind of overall for a spoiler-free kind of thing, it's still a fun ride. It's a murder mystery. It's got some good death scenes.
Yeah.
It's got some twists that work. And, it is still nice to see these characters. And some of the new, especially Melissa Vergara as Sam and her sister Tara, Jenna Ortega. That kind of bond of the film is quite nice.
Yeah.
That's quite a good part of the film.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a very good part of this film, but it does come at the expense of possibly some more time for other characters, which might have made their scenes, their deaths, or things like that kind of work a bit better at times.
Yeah. Well, as always, we're going to jump into spoilers, but we will give you a 5-second countdown, because this is what happens with me with spoilers, and I'm sure most people are the same. But you see spoilers, and then you kind of like, I don't know, so you check, anyway. So I think we're going to give people 5 seconds to be aware that spoilers are incoming, and anything after that 5 seconds is your choice.
Yeah, it's normally followed by something inappropriate anyway, or if just to throw anyone off who's like, I'm not sure whether to listen to spoilers. We'll give you, we'll tell you something that may or may not be true, and then you'll have to deal with it in your own way after that. Yeah. So let's do 5.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Stu Macker's the killer.
And Dewey hangs dong.
There you go. So go away if you don't want spoilers.
Yeah.
So So Stu Macker is not the killer, but Billy Loomis is back.
Yeah,
So I'm just jumping straight into that kind of thing.
I was kind of okay with that.
I didn't mind that, and I feel that weirdly, I actually felt like it came to quite a good conclusion with that. Like, I kind of liked that ending part. That was one part of the ending I did like.
Yeah,
was just the whole, like, as if there's serial killer inside of you, and you kind of get to see that.
I liked it, and I think, Billy Loomis is the best Scream killer. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
You know, Skeet Ulrich is the man.
Mhm.
He's a sexual man. You know, he can pull off the slick back hair, the white t-shirt. You know, the teenage heartthrob, and
But he was also, like, weirdly likable at the same time as being menacing.
Yeah,
He was I think, of all the killers, he was the only one I would 100% go, yeah, that dude looks like a fucking killer.
but he's a sexual man at the same time.
He's like, that dude looks like a killer, but I'd probably fuck him. Like,
yeah,
like,
probably pipes.
Yeah.
You know? And the thing is that I do like it. You know, I like that. It caught me completely off guard when she was driving the car. We saw him, and I was like, "Oh, damn, Skeet Ulrich's back. Nice, I like that."
Yeah, well, the first time it seems in the hospital, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
In the mirror.
In the mirror,
and I was a bit like, "Oh, okay." And then, what didn't make sense it does make sense because it does happen. Is when he's driving back. My understanding of Scream is that at the time, Billy Loomis is 16, 17. And so I'm guessing.
Yeah, because they're not graduating.
They're not graduating.
I don't know if they might be seniors.
It doesn't mention that they're seniors, so I don't know.
I think they are seniors because if I think about the timeline in terms of Scream 2, they must have been at the end
because
it was
they
only
go
like
to college.
A year or so, it was only like a year or so later, isn't it? It's 2 years later.
So he must have piped the woman before he was with Sydney, but we know that he was with Sydney for at least a year. Because he was with Sydney and her mum.
But at the same time, there's also a whole thing that plays out that basically they've been together a year, but they've never had sex. So I mean, if the dude's willing to butcher Sydney's mum and I feel like he's not against cheating on her on the side.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
I feel like it's within the realm of believability. You know. In fact, looking at this film, you know, I mean, we're talking about someone who has like very clear. I mean, the thing that more like got to me is the fact that she sees Billy in his almost final form with his blood and things like that, and it's like, why would she be imagining Billy Loomis like that? She would never have seen a shot of him looking like that.
I'm imagining
Stab. I'm imagining Stab the way he's looked in that film is the way they've made it. But I was still a bit like, you would have seen like pictures of him like in normal form. So I always thought he should have appeared in a normal form. I get that, to have the kind of shock that he kind of looks like the dead Billy Loomis kind of thing.
But I wasn't against that. I just think
when the twist happened at first, I was in my head like, I remember stopping in my head for a second. I was like, am I okay with this?
Yeah, I was a bit
am I okay with this? Does this work? Yeah. And it's one of the one things that they do say towards the end of the film where they mention, like, I like the fact that they are spot on with some of their meta kind of noticing a thing. And it is one thing I always thought of Scream, like, it's hard to do this kind of requel kind of thing when you've not got a Michael Myers to come back hunting him every time. So bringing it back to like Loomis in some form way, or is, you know, they're trying to do something, at least, I guess.
Yeah.
They were trying to do something different. And that's one thing that did work quite well for, Billy Loomis. I'm trying to think of where we're going.
I mean, for me,
because I kind of just jumped to a random, but we're going to jump around. But
we always jump around, don't we?
I feel like in our non-spoiler bit, we were a bit more about the less positive things. So I feel like we should spend some time on the positive.
One thing that
Billy Loomis, I think it was nice to see Scott Ulrich back, even in a few scenes.
I like the gore in the film. The gore's really well done.
The like, it hits you straight away in the opening scene.
Yeah, the
opening scene is quite brutal.
The opening scene was good. You know, we one of the things we spoke about before was because we were literally in the pub before having some food, and you were kind of like, well, what it could be is they've said that something happens in the opening that hasn't been done before, and obviously it's Jen Ortega surviving. But you mentioned that you listened to the prediction episode, and it mentioned that there were two sisters, and you thought that it's going to be attacking of one of them to bring the other sister back.
Yes.
And I like that. I think as a kind of a story hook, that does make
It was
sense.
a good device to bring. Yeah, as we said before, a good thing. Sam and Tara Carpenter. There you go, Carpenter. How did I only just ring on Carpenter?
I got it straight away. And I was like,
I don't remember. I don't actually remember thinking, oh, I heard the last name, so I missed that in my head. But one thing that definitely does work is bringing Sam.
Yes, a little
bit there. Sorry, bringing Sam in as a new protagonist almost.
Yeah,
but bringing her in with her sister and having this whole, that Tara actually survives the opening.
I like that.
I liked it. That that it was just a little bit different, and I think in a way we'd almost always wanted something a little bit of a change in that way. I think I'd wanted a couple of things to break the formula of the way they played it out.
Yeah.
I will come back to something about that because there's certain where I kind of wish they'd broke the formula that would have made, I think, the ending better. But I'm going to come back to that in a minute because let's stay on the positives for a minute. Those two characters, and I like the fact that, like Sydney, Sam is given a kind of like a backstory that kind of plays in well, like a harder backstory to kind of follow the same way Sydney had her mother's murder.
Yeah.
Sam has this kind of Billy Loomis past.
And this distant
that's broken her family in a way and broken her sister. And, and the fact it makes, weirdly, all of that stuff makes the opening better, I think. I think on repeat viewing, I think the opening will seem better now that you know how it all kind of plays with Tara, knowing that that's why, and that she stays alive. Because she gets brutally, she gets...
The leg snap was horrid.
First sliced across the stomach, then she gets stabbed, I believe, around the back or the side, and then she gets...
The leg stomp, isn't it?
And then she gets it through the hand when she's trying to stop.
Yeah, that's
the knife as it's coming down. Then that goes into her, and then she gets several stabs in the sides, I believe, or something. Yeah, she gets a lot, to survive.
Yeah,
there's quite a bit of a stab ratio to survival ratio in this film. Some of them don't seem to be affected by the fact they've just been stabbed.
No, a lot of them don't.
There does seem to be a little bit of a wait a sec. You were pretty brutally stabbed a minute ago and you're still here. But yeah, Tara is one of those where I think most people would be going, that bitch dead.
Yeah.
We were all for a second like,
oh, she's actually dead.
Yeah. She's dead. No, she's not. She's alive. It works well to bring the characters together. And that's what those parts with the original cast, that is good. A good start.
Yeah. It's
a good she's back in town. We get some nice scenes. We get some good scenes with Jack Quaid's. What is the boyfriend called?
Richie.
Richie, that's the one. Richie, Jack Quaid, who's Richie. And he's quite a bit of the comic relief in this film.
Yeah,
his sarcasm and stuff like that is I like that.
Yeah,
he works well.
His was more hits than misses, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was definitely the one that made it funnier. I think in general when some things weren't always funny.
Yeah.
So it's a nice way that they bring it back in, and for a while we only get these new characters to start off the film. We kind of get used to them. That's when we get the scenes such as them, all the friends sitting around talking about, and they're already on the case of any of you could be a suspect. They say to Chad about the bruise on his arm and that, you got brutally, kind of kicked about and stuff like that. Which again, it'll be interesting to go back now and look and see is Amber fully covered over so you can't see any bruises? Or it could have, obviously it could have been Richie at the same time, but then it's the distance of things that's one of the things with Richie that kind of occasionally would throw you off, is because it's he wasn't even from this town, and they drove a far way to get back to here, kind of thing. So why, how could he get there, get back? He totally could, but it just seems like a bit of a long way to go.
Well,
whereas Amber's could have just been a pre-recorded video that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that is, I think it sets it up relatively well because we are introduced to the new characters, and we do have this whole kind of who is it, and this history of Ghostface, and it's from Woodsboro and stuff like that. But I think overall, I think it struggles with pace a bit. I think we get introduced to I can't remember his name, Kyle. What's his name? Kyle Gallagher. How do you pronounce it?
Are we talking about the
Kyle Gallagher? We get introduced to that, and then he kind of dies pretty quickly. I think he has 3 scenes.
This was definitely the most disappointing death because okay, fine, you're gonna build this guy up as a sleep. A lot of horror films have this. They'll build up some sleazy character. He won't last that long, but he gets a couple of scenes to prove that he's a dirtbag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Although really all he gets is he's sat by a car and they're talking about him being a dirtbag.
And then he
tries to stab up Chad in the bar. Well, not really, but he tries to be a dick. And then that's it. That's all that Kyle Gallagher is. And then he goes out to his car and then he gets stabbed in the neck and then he dies. And there's very little suspense to it. You knew exactly where Ghostface was going to be.
Well, the problem is that shot was in the trailer.
It was, yeah. But also in the trailer, there was also which I didn't see where Ghostface is stood with. He's kind of stood in the trailer. There's one where he stood with the whole in front of the light, and you see him kind of like as if he's lording over the place, kind of thing. And that shot wasn't in the film. It was too bad because it was a really good shot. It had his knife and his blade, but my problem with it is like, yes, it was in the trailer, but it's still not good. Even if it was in the trailer, that's why there should have been more to it, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
Obviously, him getting stabbed in the neck wasn't in the trailer, but it was kind of like Ghostface stood right behind him, but then that is it. That's the most disappointing. I saw that shot in the trailer of Ghostface stood behind him. That's fine, but I also don't think that makes it any less predictable. The first place you would have guessed when he leans into the car is that Ghostface is going to be stood behind you. So where's the build? Where's the suspense of this? There wasn't even like when he was dragging himself across the floor, because again that shot was in the trailer as well of him dragging. That's when you're hoping he's going to get. If he's a dirtbag in sleeves, then let's see that guy get butchered.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like the nicer characters in this film get brutally murdered, and the character like that gets off pretty fucking easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I want to see that guy get an interested. I would have rather that the bloody Ghostface jumped in the car and drove it towards him and slammed him into the wall or something.
That's what I thought he would have done. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I would have rather like he runs him down with his car. That in the 2 scenes we've seen him, he seems to be so bloody bothered about his car.
Yeah.
It is sad. It is sad that was all that Carl Gallagher got.
Yeah.
And talking of other kills that I felt were one had a good brutality to it, but felt a bit underwhelming as well because I expected the actor to be in it more. Was Dylan Minnette?
Is that Wes?
Wes.
Yeah.
On the poster, and the fact that Dylan Minnette is probably a bigger known star than most of the cast.
Well, yeah,
he's in it a fairly short amount of time. Which is
But then
fine if you're
maybe
going to
it's-
throw people off.
Yeah.
That's fine. I was questioning whether he was going to live because he was one of the other ones. When I looked on the poster, I always tend to go like, "Who's the bigger one? Who's most likely to be a killer?"
Yeah.
And he was one that was. It was Jack Quaid was one I thought from the beginning.
Yeah.
Just from looking at the poster. And Dylan Minnette, because he was the son of the sheriff, and I felt like there could have been, they said about who knows that it's Billy Loomis's thing, and I thought maybe he could have easily stumbled across something from his mother, or his mother knew something and he heard something when he was a kid. So I was already in my head kind of building together a motive, and I thought Wes had a fairly good motive. So yes, it's good that and his is actually fine. His is built up quite well. It's his mum's, which I was really. I don't know about you, but I predicted exactly what was going to happen with
No,
her.
I didn't.
Did you not?
No.
I completely was like, he's baiting you to get you back, to get you to kill you, kind of thing.
I thought he was going to kill her, but I didn't expect it to be as she entered.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I guess because it's daytime as well. I didn't expect something like that to happen on a street.
Yeah.
The day,
Yeah, no, I get that. I don't know. It's not that like I liked the whole like chase of it in the mix with like the psycho shower kind of scene, and like they're definitely like was not one of the. It was just more. My point was more that like I expected Wes to be around a bit longer, Judy Hicks, I wasn't surprised. I expected her to be off fairly quickly. I felt like she was more brought back just to be like that kind of. I thought from the beginning she might just be a victim. But this leads me kind of to another thing that I've been thinking about with the deaths and the styles of the deaths. Have you got one more on that part?
No, my main thing to say was that scene where Wes, goes off and dies with, and Judy dies. The scene before that, I believe, is when we have Mindy talking about the whole requel conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
And then that is the last, as far as I recall, that is the last time we see any of the new characters until the end.
What, after all of them together? You mean
all of them together?
Yeah, because it's not too long after that. Wes's death isn't that long after that scene.
No, Wes is the next.
It's like him getting back from it, isn't it?
Yeah, but then
after that,
I mean.
That's when we. Yeah, that, you're
after
right.
that
That's
we don't
when we
see them
because then it goes
to
the hospital and Dewey, and then it all kind of ramps up slightly more towards the original characters / Sam kind of is more the focus with the Billy kind of mix kind of thing. Is all kind of there, yeah. So there is a big gap. So it's not until the party that we see any of those lot kind of come back.
And by the time we got to the party, I was like, I don't care about these characters. Like, I wanted to like them, but I just didn't care.
I like certain ones. I like the Meeks.
So,
I liked Chad. I thought Chad had quite a good in a few scenes. I found him quite endearing. I didn't want him to die, and he didn't die.
And that's the thing is,
but I kind of liked that he didn't die, but he got a brutal kind of.
I thought. I don't know. I just thought one of them should have died because they both lost a lot of blood. I mean, I'm sure he got stabbed in the femoral artery.
He looked like he was bleeding like that. He should be.
You bleed out in like 2 minutes.
Again, this one does have a little bit of a problem with how brutally people are stabbed and how they manage to survive.
Yeah.
I mean, like at the rate that some others were getting. I mean. When we'll get to the end, but then that's where really like the stabbing part definitely is like now you're really getting a bit silly with this. But what was I gonna say? This is one of my things that the first thing we said when we got out of the cinema to me is, and this is hard not to say, is the directors. Because there's something about there's a lack of style to Ghostface in this, I feel.
Yeah.
He had such in the original films. There's a way he moved. There's a way his cloak moved that kind of just made it like a whoosh. I'm in front of you kind of thing, And you really like kind of drawn in. And this one, the rest of his costume just kind of seems a bit like almost weird at times. It's just it doesn't feel like it's moving with him. It doesn't feel like it's got that style. The shots just seem like such like they're like. I'm blanking on the word, but they're just like a still frame, like a standard shot kind of thing. It's like, so when Judy runs back towards the house, it's just like we're following her on one standard like tracking kind of forward shot, and then out comes Ghostface from just behind like a pole or so, I don't know where he is, and out he comes and stabs. I had no problem with him coming out and like stabbing her and killing, like, I mean, right in the middle of that it was different. But then at the same time, I kind of would have preferred she went into the house and we got a bit more of a suspenseful kind of play up towards it. I liked the shock, but I kind of think I would have rather she walked into the door and then kind of, I feel like that would have shocked me more than just like, here I am kind of thing. And it's the same with like, Wes had quite a good suspenseful build up, to be fair.
Yeah, Wes had more suspense.
They made a joke. They made a joke about every door because, to be fair, by that point in the film, every death so far had kind of basically been like, oh, I'm just off the side of the camera, or I'm just behind this door. So when Wes is there, like opening and closing every door, and you're like, is he going to be there? Is he not? Like, that's why I kind of thought Wes was going to survive that part, because I thought that Wes was. I thought they were just messing with us, and all it was actually going to build to is Wes going out to see his mum dead on the front, kind of,
That's what I was
when
thinking.
The door was open, I thought that was actually just Judy, like, has dragged her way to the door, and he's just going to see a dead body, like, leaning against the door or something.
Yeah.
But no, Wes actually gets a fairly probably one of the most, like, slow and violent deaths.
Yeah.
Like, not in overall, like, battery of, like, stab, stab, stab.
But it's just very
but it's the old...
slow.
Yeah, like, and it's great practical effects. The way it goes through his neck, and we see it come out the side of his neck. as he's kind of
Yeah.
as he's dying, the kind of the way it goes through it's quite cool. It's one of the ones that stands out in my head as one of the good deaths in this film.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that there are a few problems that I have that jump out at me. I know to kind of briefly go completely different to where you've gone, but this is a burning thing that we've had, and this is something that we spoke about on the Lost Scream episode.
Yeah.
It's that I don't know when this happened in the Scream franchise, but all of a sudden, Ghostface became really tall in Scream 4.
This was a major problem for me, and that was a thing that always takes me out of Scream 4.
Scream 4, there's scenes where he's looming over the police, and he seems like he's about 6'3". Yeah, but Jill Roberts.
There's no way.
Yeah, Emma Roberts and Rory Culkin.
It's a 5 foot, like both of them. Like you look at, I don't know exactly how tall they are, but it literally, I would guess Emma Roberts is probably about 5'1" or something like that, and I would guess that Kieran Culkin does not look like he's much taller than that. We said this in our prediction episode, by the way. We had this whole conversation. We had the whole conversation about Rob's just looking at it, but it's giving us bloody meters.
I'm taller than Kieran Culkin. Kieran Culkin is 168 meter.
You've written in Kieran Culkin, but it's giving you a picture of the wrong Culkin brother. That's not Kieran Culkin. That's Rory Culkin.
Well, that's Kieran Culkin to
him. Even Google doesn't know who Kieran Culkin is. That is 100% the Culkin brother that is in. Or have we got it? No, we've got it mixed up. It's Rory Culkin, not Kieran Culkin. Okay,
I'm taller than Rory Culkin as well.
I thought the other one was Rory.
Rory Culkin is 1'6'8", which I believe is like 5'7". 5'8", which is what I am, is about 1'7".
In the film, he doesn't look much taller than. He looks about the same size as Jill, because like when they're standing.
Yeah.
Although she's got heels on, to be fair. If you look in the film, she has got big ass heels on. But again, the big ass heels only make her about the same size as Charlie.
Yeah.
So. And also, in those big-ass heels, if you look at the way that Ghostface runs up behind the policeman in Scream 4, no chance in hell. I know they've said, like in the Jurassic World has this whole, like, she's running in heels, she can do it. Yes, she can. She can run in heels, and Jill could run in heels, but not the way she runs towards the police officer like that. She literally glides really quickly towards him. No, that's just not. I know we're talking about height and like in a film where certain things like are just unbelievable
don't die,
but it is a true fact, and I
think it's because the killer isn't supernatural. It's a whodunit, and it just
we need some groundedness.
Yeah, it just breaks the suspense, or it breaks the illusion for me when the killer is so tall, and then the only scene that the killer didn't look tall in was after Mindy had been attacked and was running away. Yeah. That was the only scene where I thought, that looks like somebody hunched over and small.
Yeah.
Other than that, it always makes them look like they're massive. It makes them look huge.
And I get that that's meant to add to the kind of scariness of the way they look.
But it made sense for Stu. Because Matthew Lillard's quite tall, but then it just all the other ones were never that tall. Even I think none of the other ones have been that tall.
Not really. No, it definitely was. So I think Scream 4 is the one that really started it, though.
Yeah, definitely.
But I feel like to create that, like they think he looks scarier if he looks taller. When I don't think that's the case. And to be fair, just back to the style of it. There was just something about Ghostface. It's just the way he was shot. There was no real lighting on the way he was shot and stuff. He just was always just there. So the white of the mask almost looked less scary because there was no shadow to it. There was no, you know what I mean? Yeah. There was no lighting. There was no really coming out of the shadows. It always felt like he was running out into light. Apart from the opening when he comes out of like a dark area, it always felt like he was just in the light. And therefore, if you see him in the light, that's not as scary. And if also, like, you don't get to see him like moving around. Like, that's what I kind of liked about is that you get to see this big like swishing. So those things. But I think our admit, like the main part when that size difference is thing is Dewey.
Yeah.
That's the one when I really was like, they look. He's towering over Dewey. Dewey's not that. He's not. I'm not saying he's mega tall, but he's not that short that you should be towering over. And once we know who the killer is, it especially makes no fucking sense that he's towering over Dewey.
No.
Because it is Amber who is short.
Yeah, and it's kind
she
of
is shorter than most of the other friends, so she's definitely short in comparison. And in one scene, she is near Dewey, and she is definitely smaller than Dewey.
Yeah, and for me, and then there's there's another thing is that when Ghostface is shot in the hospital scene, which I thought was a cool scene. It's shot, and then I had this problem with Scream 2 with the car crash.
Yeah,
they didn't. You get the chance, and they didn't remove the mask straight there.
That was a. This is okay. So we're into the biggest twist of the film.
Yeah.
Also, probably the one again. Sadly, I weirdly feel like I was more ready for this purely because the trailers made it seem very obvious that Dewey was going to die. I feel like that's the only reason I'm prepared. If the trailers hadn't given it away, I feel like I would have been more shocked and possibly more taken aback by this, that Dewey actually died.
No, I think
the trailer was always gave it fairly.
I think he was all. It was.
But this whole film is pretty much like signposted, like that Dewey is going to die in the way he talks to the original characters. The way he talks to Sydney on the phone, is like a goodbye. So that second right there, I was like, right, so we're not getting a scene with Dewey and Sydney actually together. Because you've added this scene just so that you can say there was a scene of the two characters interacting, because they're not actually going to get to interact in person, kind of thing. Because it was almost like a you're okay, you're thing, stay away, be safe, don't do something stupid. Sydney kind of like, don't get yourself like involved. And you're like, of course he's going to get himself involved. You know that this is what's going to happen, and you know that this is what's going to bring Sydney back.
Yeah,
Dewey is a device used to bring Sydney Prescott back into the film.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dewey's death. In general, though, to be honest, I think
it was more violent than I expected it to be.
Yeah,
it was quite gory and bloody, quite brutal, kind of thing, which is fine, to push that kind of, not just make it like an overly tame just because it's a beloved character kind of thing. That's fine because it's a horror film.
Yeah.
But it's annoying because Dewey's character, again, the same with Gale, gets that one scene, and it's like we're going to get all of our emotions about what we've gone through in the last 5 years out in the next 2 minutes of talking to each other, just because I'm going to be dead soon. So we need to have had that moment where we reconcile all our problems in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that's not the stuff that actually bothers me. I'm fine with that. It happens all the time, kind of thing. The thing that bothers me is that Dewey gets actually a really good character arc here.
Yeah.
We get to see Dewey less, Barney Fife, as they refer to him in previous films, the old comedy kind of act kind of thing. We get less of the bumbling and more of although we get a few funny little scenes with him in that, we get less of the bumbling scene and we get more of the, old kind of worn down a bit kind of Dewey helping out. But also the way he acts with the other characters, the way he brings it in, I just think David Arquette does a really good job here of playing between the slight, the honest, kind of the kindness that is in Dewey, and also a little bit of a rougher. And this is why the part of his death that is annoying to me is that why did they have to make his death such a crappy cliche? Why did his reasoning for do it have to be such an annoying kind of? Why didn't you take the mask? Why didn't you shoot him in the head straight away? You know this. Why are you going off? Why are you getting off the elevator to go back by yourself? We know this isn't going to work out well, but it just doesn't. The whole round up to it didn't really make sense. You know what I mean? He has to go all the way back in front of them.
Yeah.
He has to go and stand right in front of the killer to be able to shoot him in the head when he could probably have done it from a bloody mile away and blasted him.
Yeah, he is a trained cop.
You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. He gets up and he goes over to Richie. Again, this is also the scene when I said 100% I'm like, Richie is a killer.
Yeah.
Because no one sits there for the amount of time that Dewey is fighting with that guy and just goes, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna stay lying on the ground and looking at you, even though I'm not really that badly injured.
No, he just got his arm cut.
Yeah,
and his head banged against the door. Yeah, I mean, I told you before that.
You said about like that you think that Richie was the killer, and it'll be interesting to see whether that actually was correct, because you said about
well, he said that Vince. He said something about Vince being dead, and to my knowledge, they said that a body had been discovered, but not that it was Vince. And then he also said that when they met Dewey, that he was nicer in the films, and to my knowledge, he was only watching the first stab. He hadn't watched the others.
Whereas I'm pretty sure he said, I'm watching the stab movies on Netflix. But again, that still plays into it. But then we know he easily could have has obviously watched them a million times over anyway.
Definitely.
But yeah, the body one is the one where I wasn't sure, because I didn't know whether so it could have just said a body, therefore it's him giving away that he knew exactly who was dead.
Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, but as I said, like, Jack Quaid was my top choice for killer anyway, because the boyfriend thing, I thought, but then they're trying to do like a jump back to the original, but they're trying very hard also to make it that he couldn't possibly be the killer in this film, because it's like, no, he lives miles away. He couldn't possibly do that. He doesn't know the Scream films at all. He's he's always joking about getting out of town, and I don't want to be this, and and then even later in the film, like when he's injured or hurt or things like that, to be like, well, he's obviously not going to be the killer, like, kind of thing. All those kind of things. So yeah, I do feel like Amber is different. Amber is she's a cold ass bitch the whole way through. She's not a likable character at all the whole film.
But my problem is,
she was almost horribly like, oh God, like, I really don't like you. And then she turned out to be the killer. And then at the same time, I knew nothing about her.
Exactly. And that's my problem is, with the first Scream, we spend a fair amount of time with Billy and Stu.
Yeah.
So you always suspect it's Billy. And then when they have the
Billy gets a lot of scenes. Stu gets a few scenes, but Matthew Lillard plays him up so well in a few scenes.
Yeah. And then, he just kind of disappears throughout. You get Stu in it as well. Second film, obviously you do have a few scenes with Mickey, and I watched it back, and he is fighting the corner of sequels, saying like sequels always are better than the original, so it makes sense. And you do see, Miss Loomis come in bits and pieces. Third film, you get Roman quite a lot. Fourth film, you spend a lot of time with Jill and with Charlie, and just with all of the cast in general. But with this film, apart from the opening, the first act, you don't get enough time to know them. So by the time we got to the third act, I didn't care about the characters. And then when Amber was revealed to be the killer, I was like, why should I care about that? Because I know nothing about them.
It's weird in the same way, because I wouldn't say that necessarily she's any less. I feel like probably, if I'd probably say Mickey and Charlie probably got nearly amount of the same, because Amber is in like hospital scene talking. She's very standing up for Tara and things like that. I think she does go for a while, but then I think like Charlie's also technically been and gone for quite a lot. Mickey's literally barely in like 2 or 3 scenes.
Charlie
of the
gets
film.
I fight the corner of Charlie.
He gets the film club. My thing is that I think that the other characters were more. I think my problem is that because she's so unlikable, I don't want to care at all about her. So even though she's in a couple, I think like she is kind of like a force to be reckoned with in quite a few. She's like a standing up for Tara. She's got a real fucking chip on her shoulder like the whole time.
Yeah.
So she's always chiming in. But I feel like because they made her so unlikable, I didn't even think about. I didn't. To be fair, I didn't necessarily. Like, I did think at one point, she seems like she's fucking crazy, so she could be a killer. But at the same time, I was also. It's just the fact of like, because I didn't like the character so much when she was revealed to be it. It's weirdly, I'd almost want a likable character to turn out to be twisted.
Yeah,
I would rather say, like I said earlier with like Wes, I would rather a character who I actually was kind of slightly liking in some ways turned out to be the twisted character. That's more interesting than someone who's a bitch the whole time and then just continues to be.
Maybe that's why I like Robbie so much, Charlie so much. I even said my name instead of his.
Yeah.
Because he's a film nerd. And
Yeah,
it's like me and,
that's
watching
what I
it,
mean.
I was like, that's me and you.
Yeah.
The two film nerds.
Yeah,
And
exactly. He's a like. That's why I think he does like play, and also he gets a fantastic reveal.
Yeah,
He gets an awesome reveal. Amber gets okay, we're doing this now, are we? We are doing this, are we?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, because again, she does also get that scene with, one of her better scenes, to be fair, is the one with her and Mindy in the basement where they're
that was
playing
good.
up the kind of. You know what I mean? This is just why I guess, like, on the first viewing, it's like, oh, maybe if you rewatch it, it'd be like, oh, okay, she does get more build up.
Yeah, I might have to watch it. It's definitely going to get another.
It's hard when you say, like, after we've seen Scream 4 and stuff like that, and we've seen it so many times in a certain way that we're used to those characters. So we might later come back to it and go, oh, you know what? There was that, but she definitely wasn't a likable character.
Yeah.
She was definitely one that you were kind of like, is she going to live or die? I believe her as a killer, because she was such a fucking bitch. But that doesn't mean that was the first step in the finale where I felt a little bit like, oh shit, is this the finale? I was a bit there like, is that the reveal? That's the worst reveal you've had. Like, I was a bit like out of all of the reveals and stuff like that, like the Roman reveal wasn't technically a shit reveal because they'd actually played up the fact that he was dead quite well. So it wasn't a shit reveal. It was the twist that then comes with the reveal that was shit. The closest is the Mickey reveal, is where it's just kind of like, oh, here he is, kind of thing.
I forgot about you.
Yeah, I kind of forgot because I haven't seen you in the film since I don't remember what scene of the film. So yeah, there's that part, and that's probably again slightly raised by the fact I kind of like Timothy Olyphant.
I love Timothy Olyphant. Again, another sexual man.
Yeah,
and that's
sexual men all over.
Yeah,
but yeah. So when we build into the finale. This is, Amber's there, shoots Liv in the head, who again, Liv had quite a good little psycho scene before.
I mean, at the end, I literally said to you, "What happened to Liv?"
Yeah.
And I was like,
because she gets blasted, head splattered across the walls. But yeah, that it. I mean, in one way, it threw you off because in all the others, Sydney's normally secluded when the reveal happens. Whereas this one is a little bit more like, we're all standing around and you've just shot her in the head. There's like 4 or 5 characters stood around.
Which is why it's weird to reveal it then.
Because then they all scatter. And the first thing that popped in my head was like, literally one of them in this amount of time could have legged it to the car, drove off, and you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, they're gone. The reason that Billy and Stu and the reason that Mickey and Mrs. Loomis secluded someone to an area so they're alone is because everyone could just fucking get out of the house or go and ring the police while you're. Yeah. This is the fucking, especially now. This is the modern age when half of those characters, I would imagine, have a mobile somewhere on them.
Yeah, it was kind of a bit like.
But it's like, okay, so this is where, like, you know what I mean? And then we get Sydney and Gail show up to the house. I like the fact that straight away Sydney and Gail go, this trap.
Yeah,
and they go straight for it. So this actually is my good segue to jump back to what was earlier.
Yeah.
I was thinking about earlier. I kind of wish a little bit that they'd broken the formula for the reveal of the killer. Yeah. I mean, one thing in our prediction episode that we wished was that they'd actually just leave, if they are planning to make more, and after the end of this film, I'd quite fine if that's it. We're done. Scream 5, that's it. Let's not push it more. We don't need the Meeks twins and all that kind of. I don't know, but I'm sure the studio that owns it will probably think differently, especially if this has a good opening weekend. They'll be like, money. I do believe that this is the end for Gail and Sydney. Yeah, I think we leave it, and that's fine. We leave it in that way. But if you were going for the other one, then I kind of wish that we'd played it. They would have had to do better than that Amber reveal, because then yes, people would have been very disappointed. But I can't. Like, one was that we wished that they would not reveal all the killers by the end and leave one open. Yeah. So then what happens in this film with the whole you could be the killer, that distrust built into a good friend. Into a good group of friends. Yeah. we said in the prediction one would be quite an interesting way to be like, they're still kind of there, but they'd kind of never know who that person was. There's no one's ever found out, and the kind of way that can like break up the friends and break them into these distrustful people. And then in the sequel, if the friends again, those same friends start dying one by one, it's kind of like, okay,
And
that could be interesting.
And this is because I forgot Liv was dead. When Amber was revealed as the killer, shot Liv, which didn't even register with me.
Yeah.
And then we got another. She ran off, and then Ghostface came back.
Yeah.
I thought this is the second killer, and then obviously
it was still Liv. It was still Amber. Sorry,
it was still Amber, and I was thinking, is this Liv? And I looked at Anna and I said, 3 killers. Like maybe they're having another
3
one.
killers, yeah.
Maybe having another. And then that's why after when it ended, I was like, oh my god, what if Liv is still alive and was a killer? That's why I said to you, what happened to Liv? Thinking,
like,
oh my god, you were she was shot in the head. I was like, oh, okay. Didn't even register that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I just didn't care about these characters. Man.
But this is where this goes back to the Dewey scene. So let me play out what suddenly played, and I think that in my head, in the 2 seconds I had to think about it after I knew who the killers and stuff like that, I suddenly had a thought in my head to how Dewey's scene could have played out.
Yeah.
Which would have been less dumb than what happened originally. 1, they helped to stop it. Richie actually did something and slightly made it seem less like he's just waiting for Dewey to get murdered. And Richie kind of helps. He pushes it to one side, but then they try to get, maybe, I don't know, if the Sam character's a little bit more injured or something like that, they both try to get them to the lift.
Yeah.
And then Dewey says that he needs to shoot him in the head, and Richie says, okay, you guys go, I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when you have Dewey go up to get the knocked out Amber, who we don't see who it is.
Yeah.
And at that point, halfway through the film, we find out that Richie is actually the killer.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been more interesting to break the mold, break the formula halfway through, and with still one killer to be revealed. We don't reveal who the other killer is.
Yeah.
But Richie's the killer. And that way Dewey doesn't seem like an idiot for going back in the way he does, because he wasn't alone, he didn't do things by himself, and he's ready to shoot him when Richie
It would have been interesting if we had.
I feel like it would have been like, because then you're kind of watching Richie the rest of the film in a different way, or
thinking
you're
who's
watching
the
a character.
next one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
I feel like that would have been a more of a break the mold instead of what feels like a very too samey ending here. I feel like it felt so like. I don't mind the whole motive of their like, this is toxic fandom that's gone mad. Like we wanna make a better sequel. We're sick of the producers making shitty sequels and things like that. We could make a better one, and this is fan fiction going too far, because we do see that all over the internet.
Yeah,
we see it all the time. So fair enough. Yes, like the whole, as they can't do the whole celebrity thing because it's been done, they've gone for the fan fiction side of thing. Like everyone wants like Sydney to be killed at a certain time, or you all have to die this time. Like, fair enough, and they needed to get Sydney, and they needed to find a way to get them all back if they can, kind of thing. Although I would, they need to kill Dewey to get Sydney to come back. They kind of play that into the plot. That whole explanation's fine, but it is for me. It just felt that the whole ending was so then similar in certain ways to the originals that it felt like it didn't break any new ground. It felt like we found out the reveal, which was, yes, slightly different because she did it in a room full of people. She shot, things like that. And Richie goes through all of, Richie has the reveal because Sydney shot him in the leg. And, again, which that leg thing seems to go away very suddenly.
Yeah.
When he got shot in the freaking leg, like in the, like, I swear, like near the kneecap, wasn't it? At least, like, suddenly he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And we said about the stabbings earlier. Sam gets stabbed in the side and it gets twisted in her. Yeah. She drops to the ground. She's in pain. But by the time we get to the final scene, she's walking around like, you all right, Tara? You okay?
Yeah.
The ambulance don't seem to care. Tara actually hasn't had that much done to her.
Not at that point.
Whereas Sam and everyone else has been stabbed or shot.
Yeah.
And yet they're not properly like in an ambulance being taken anywhere. But Tara is. Tara's back off to the hospital. The rest of them are like, oh yeah, I can just... If I got stabbed, I'm not freaking walking around going, oh, yeah, that's all right. It's basically just like I pulled a muscle.
Yeah, and another thing with the stabbing is that we see that Judy gets stabbed and then dies quite quickly, but
Yeah.
then Richie gets fucking stabbed many times and is still kind of alive.
Yeah, he's still
like,
going.
what about my ending? You
Yeah,
know?
he's still going. And yeah, I mean, I guess Tara got pretty brutalized at the beginning as well, and you know where you'd expect her to be dead. And I guess some people have survived. I mean, like certain things happening like that. I mean, 50 Cent got shot 9 times, but
yeah, that's true.
unless that was just for his
But
story.
he walked off with a limp. You know what I mean? Like Dewey.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dewey. Dewey had been stabbed 9 times, so they're not against their.
Maybe Dewey and 50 Cent.
Yeah,
there's some in there, you know.
But the way they're brutalized, you're almost at the point where they're like, so could Dewey be alive?
Yeah,
because you've all done
that's
it.
what I was
could
like.
Could Dewey still be alive?
Like when that happened to him, I was like, can he still be alive?
Yeah.
And then I saw the coroners, and I was like, this is getting a bit. Yeah, maybe he's dead.
Yeah, it was rip Dewey,
Rip
and it
Dewey,
was
yeah.
it was brutal in her and so the so yeah, I think that is the main, like the Wes one, I call him Wes. It's not Wes. I mean Chad. Chad meet. It's like him getting attacked outside, like the whole following the app and stuff like that kind of thing. Yeah, that one worked fairly suspensefully kind of thing. But he was like the only one before it kind of all went off kind of thing. I thought that they might try to off a few more in different locations before they got straight to it kind of thing. It just felt, and it just felt quick at certain times. It felt like it just kind of, this is already happening. We're already here. Are we really already at this point of, is this all we're getting of those original characters?
Yeah.
Have we really already skipped those points? Oh shit, is Gail already out of the game already? She's been like literally they just arrived at the house. We just had a whole build up to Gail and she's shot, and at that point you're like, is that it for Gail already?
Yeah.
She's like already out of the game, you know. One of them always gets knocked out, to be fair, before they get to, but I didn't expect Gail to get there.
Yeah, it was just a bit like, for me, I don't know, I don't know. It felt, it opened up in like it could have been interesting. And then it, like I said, with the whole, when it spoke about how requels work and that kind of stuff, it felt as if it didn't want to commit fully to the original legacy characters, but then it didn't want to commit fully to the new characters outside of Sam and Tara.
Yeah.
So you just have these characters who have been introduced, and the whole idea is this whole who's done it. So by the time, you know, we find out who the killer is, and we're at the party, and the bodies are supposed to start piling up, you just don't really care about them, you know. Like there was the scene, like the Meeks, they could have died, and if I would have, you know, it wasn't like with Randy where I was like, oh god, I don't want Randy to die.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or with these characters, some other characters where I was like, I don't want them to die. It was kind of like,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like as I said, for weirdly the Chad character, I actually, in the few bits he got, I kind of liked the way, I liked his humor. I liked the way he came across. I really liked the scene with Liv where he's like, I don't want to go upstairs to have sex with you because you could be the killer. I like
that.
And that led quite well into when he went outside. So I was left like liking him just moments before he's going to go out, and I think he's going to die. And I was disappointed. I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that you're dead already. Actually, weirdly, because weirdly I would have preferred that was if one of the Meeks was going to survive, I think I would have preferred him and Mindy died, because Mindy at times felt a little bit too much of just a Randy.
Yeah.
Just a Randy in modern Gen Z clothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We even have a scene where she's watching Stab of the Randy scene where she's in the scene where we're like, this is a recreation of a scene and a recreation of a scene. This is meta as hell.
Yeah.
And then, but obviously this time the difference is that she actually gets attacked while she's on there. But yeah, I was kind of a bit like, and I didn't, the Stab recreation scene, I was a bit like, it's not like, I didn't think it was that well done, the Stab part, but they'd made a new Stab scene. obviously in Scream 2 we had a recreation with Heather Graham and Luke Wilson and those kind of scenes,
that was cool.
like, which was cool. But then this one where it had like a bunch of like just some random person, I'm sure we'd probably find, oh, that was actually the director, or that was actually one of the writers standing in for, I don't know, some random like in joke or something.
Well,
like
I guess that was the point. It's supposed to be so far removed that.
Yeah, so she's like watching the random. You're like, I don't mind the whole stab. Because obviously it's the way that they can access to be like, the stab is what your Scream is. So for all the people watching, stab is our Scream. It is this is how we can reference the original and really bring the original in and really use the original to be like the obsession with people with the terrible. I'm also really glad that the shot of Ghostface with the shiny metal mask and the and the flamethrower turned out to actually be an in-joke, that Stab 8 is the one that's gone to that point where it's like a sleeveless Ghostface with a flamethrower cool. And a thing. You know what I mean? I'm glad that it didn't turn out that Ghostface actually jumps into different, because I'd heard a rumor early in production that someone said that Ghostface changes into different costumes. So I was like, oh shit, is he really going to go into a metallic faced?
Yeah, I was kind of
flamethrower someone down. Like, I feel like they'd played that well, because there was a shot of someone on fire, which turns out to be Amber. So I was like, is that the flamethrower scene?
I was like, it was quite a cool subversion, you know, because it looked so real. But then when you actually saw the shot in the thing, it looked really cheap and tacky, and
it looked awful, like kind of thing. Yeah,
but intentionally. Have you got much more to add? Because, like you said, we don't want to talk through the whole film.
I feel the actors are all good. They're doing as best as they can. They're just, a lot of them just aren't given enough. No. David Arquette and Melissa Vergara, they're the kind of, I don't know, the MVPs of the film kind of thing. They're the ones that kind of, I think, raise it at points, and other ones that are trying their hardest. Sidney Prescott is kind of a glorified cameo to come in at the end and kick ass kind of thing.
Really, yeah.
I do kind of like. It's kind of annoying because I do like the Amber death because of how it's Sydney and Gail doing it together. I kind of liked that. That was a little bit of, but I feel like if we'd had a bit more scenes with them, maybe I'd feel that was more of a kick-ass scene.
Yeah.
But it felt rushed. Yeah. It felt like we got to that point and they're together fighting it out kind of thing. And I was just like, yeah, but you're just here literally to be straight to, you've only been in this like a few minutes and somehow you've already managed to make it straight into the finale kind of thing. You know what I mean? You've arrived just in time for that. They're doing as good a job as they ever did, with Courtney Cox and, Neve Campbell are doing as good a job as they ever did. They're there, they're doing it. Neve Campbell still kicks ass as Sydney.
Yeah, she's still
Courtney Cox is still, good. Maybe a little less fierce this time around. She's a bit more emotional, but there's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
But even before Dewey dies, she seems a bit more of a much tamer kind of version of Gail Weathers.
Yeah.
She was even a bit more edgier in Scream 4. A bit more like, I still got it. Bitch, like kind of thing. Like fighting back with Ghostface kind of thing. She seems a bit more easily like beaten this time around. But I definitely like when she gets to kill Amber. That's good because I hated Amber.
I had no feelings towards her, to be honest. I was like, okay.
So that with those original characters, great. I could see where it could go from here, but at the same time, I also don't know if it needs to go anywhere from here.
Yeah.
I'm sure money will talk. I don't think this is the end of Scream. It's not. Whether it's continuation with these characters or whether we get just another completely rebooted in a couple of years from now. But I will say, it sounds like we're pointing out a lot of negative, and I find like every time we come up with one of these reaction episodes, we do tend to be more, because I feel it becomes easier to pick the nitpicky parts.
I guess it does.
And on going back to it, we might find that actually, you know what, we're fine with this now. We've got used to the idea. Sometimes these things, when you're passionate about them, this is us being our toxic fanboys.
Yes, that's it.
So in a way, yes, it's already more relevant than you think, because us talking about it is actually, because you're so passionate about and I am definitely very passionate about this franchise. Yeah. So certain things just kind of slightly annoyed me at the same time. And I've actually heard a few people say that. They've said they were annoyed by this film and yet they enjoyed this film.
Yeah.
And I can say that. Like, I enjoyed it. It's a good ride.
Yeah. I think it's definitely gonna rewatch it. Am I in a rush to rewatch it? No, not particularly.
No.
I will. I mean, I will come back to it. I think that's the good thing about Screamers. You go back to them and you try and pick up on the things that you missed and look at it from different angles. So I'm looking forward to that. I was more hopeful of it, maybe that's more to do with my potential expectations of what I was going to get.
Yeah.
I think it falls bang in the middle. I think the first is an all-time classic, and then for me the fourth one, I quite got a soft spot for the fourth one, and then I would comfortably put this in the middle. It has its moments. Like I said to you, there's not really particularly any standout kind of set pieces.
Yeah.
But it has some interesting kills,
Interesting ideas. Brings in new thoughts into the film. For my ranking, I'm pretty much 1, 2, and 4. I really love. So for me, this one's falling either fourth or it's last.
Oh, really?
I'm going back and forth because one thing that is playing in my mind is just the fact of the difference is every other Scream film I've seen, I've wanted to go be like, oh, I want to go and watch that again now.
Yeah.
And I'm not feeling it with this film, which shows to me straight away that I'm a little less enthusiastic.
Essentially.
But partially it's because, one, as I said, I was a bit thrown off by the director's style. I know this isn't Wes Craven. It was never going to be Wes Craven, sadly. But I just didn't feel that Ghostface had the same style as he did previously. I don't think that the kills they were gruesome and gory, but I don't think they were actually that well suspenseful or scary. No. Which is a kind of a slight failure in some ways. So I'm not saying the directors did a bad job, but a lot of the good things seem to come more from ideas from the script than necessarily the direction that is actually given. I feel like a lot of other directors could have done the exact same job that the directors did here.
Yeah.
Whereas Wes Craven, this proves, was a standalone in the way that he kind of looked at these films, because there's something about the pacing in the original films that kind of keeps it moving, even when you have characters talking and interacting. There's a paciness, there's a lightheartedness, there's a fun to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's although it's funny at times, it doesn't feel like that same fun murder mystery ride that we go on.
Yeah.
It feels a bit more between, is it trying to be the existential A24 kind of joke, kind of we're doing a bit more serious, or is it trying to be meta? And I don't think they find the balance between, are we trying to be a more serious Scream, or are we trying to be a meta Scream? Are we trying to be like the original?
Yeah.
Or are we trying to be like a more modern sequel kind of thing?
Yeah.
And which one do you want to be? And I feel like the tone is not always perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
But it's a good time at the cinema. It's a good time.
That's it. And I think,
I still stand by the fact that there is no truly bad Scream film.
No, I'm with you on that.
Any other, I'd still put this one and say no. It's not a bad film, and it's not. We still are.
It's a fun film.
It's a fifth film in a franchise, and it's still pretty good for a fifth film in a franchise of a horror franchise. By this point, as they make a joke about stab and stuff like that, but at this point, normally so really freaking crazy, like someone's been resurrected. I mean, we were very much. I was on tender hooks as to whether Stu Macker actually was going to show up. When we got Billy, I was like, are we getting Stu?
I was a bit like, okay, let's see how this goes.
Are we getting that? Yeah, but so luckily that's not the case. But so it seems like a good place to leave it off.
Yeah, it does. Well, as always, we hope that you've enjoyed the show. Come and let us know your thoughts on Scream, the new Scream that is, at on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. Hit the subscribe button and you'll get the episodes as soon as they come out. And if you leave us a lovely review on whichever streaming site or podcast app you use, that would be amazing. Spotify now allow you to leave reviews for podcasts. So if you listen to us on Spotify, please hit that review button, and we will see you shortly for another episode. Until then, take care and goodbye.